just thinking about like the people involved in your business or what you're creating here, I feel like the way you talk about like what it is and giving parents a space to take a break and kids having a fun experience, it sounds very community minded.
Yeah.
And it's kind of curious if you can talk a little bit about that, like what community mean for you.
Community is such a big importance to what I'm doing at Bubbles. As a mom who went through postpartum depression, not having an outlet to just get out of the house with my baby at the time and talk to other moms was a challenge. I managed to get through it and I did find my community, but
Yeah.
I want Bubbles to be that space for new parents who do need an outlet. If you need a hot coffee, come over. Like, I'll hold your baby for you. Will you sit and have a little cry? Like, no problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to just be about hair. It really is about creating that environment for people to go through what they're going through. So
Hmm.
these things exist, but they don't really exist in the area where I'm living now. So just creating a business that really puts women and families at the forefront is really important to me. I'm not going to do it if it doesn't work for women.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect of the impact from the kids' perspective is, again, giving them a space where they can be themselves
Yeah.
and letting them use things that are designed for them. Nothing is designed for children. There's playgrounds and stuff like that, but those are public spaces. There's not that many businesses that are like, hey, what do you want to do? What's going to be fun for you? Let's do it.
Hey, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Sustainable Tech Podcast. Today, I've got another amazing guest. I met her at Startup Fest during the summer, and I just was really inspired by the way she talked about her business, her background, the things she'd been doing, and the intersection of technology, community building, and all kinds of other stuff that just kind of bubbled together. And bubbled is really the word to use here because she is Alex Weaver Crawford, founder of Bubbles Haircare for Kids, and she's got an extensive background in design, in communications, in the tech sector, and she's applying that stuff in a bunch of different ways with this new venture, Bubbles Haircare for Kids. Before the interview, it really struck me the way she talked about community and purpose and these things in terms of building a business, but that felt so much more concrete after I interviewed her for the podcast. I think what she's building and this sort of community-centered effort to create a space that feels supportive for parents, for women, for kids is really inspiring. So I hope you enjoyed listening to the interview as much as I enjoyed recording it. Here's my chat with Alex. Hey, Alex.
Hi, Rob. How's it
How's it
going?
going? I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. I spoke over you, didn't I? No, I'm great. It's so great to see you again after Startup Fest.
You too. How have things been?
Things have been really good. I've been traveling quite a bit this summer, and we're just about to sign the lease on Bubbles flagship location here in St. John.
Amazing.
Hey,
Cool.
yeah,
So, yeah, with that, how about you tell us a little bit about Bubbles? What is Bubbles?
sure. Bubbles Haircare for Kids is a hair salon concept exclusively for kids that makes it fun for them and easy for their parents. So really, it's a hair salon. Kids can come in. We've got decor that's specific for kids, make them feel comfortable and welcome. And the process is easy for parents, so they can prepay for appointments. Moms or parents with long hair can come in for blowouts while their kids play in our play area. It's really just something that's designed for kids because there's not a lot of things in this world that are specifically for kids and kind of giving parents a bit of a break. So, come have a coffee, get a blowout, get your kids a haircut, and just have fun. That's what we're all about.
That's awesome. So, I'm kind of curious, how how did you decide that you wanted to build this, and sort of what in your life led you to figure out that there was this problem? Yeah, what happened?
It's a really good question, and what happened to you is sort of like a good way to frame it, to be honest. Maybe I'll dive into a bit of my background with the caveat of you don't have to do what you studied in school to do what you want to do with your life. Because, I mean, I started off with a business degree and then I dabbled in fine art. So I ended up with an undergrad in business and fine art. So I knew I wanted to
Love
do
it.
something creative, but my like Calgary oil and gas family past forced me into business, but I'm so glad I have it. I'll get back to that.
Yeah.
So with the creativity part, I decided to go down the path of design and specifically architecture. So I have another undergrad in architecture and a master's in architecture. So that's kind of I spent my 20s as a full-time student and popped out at 30 being like, "Oh, what the heck? Like what am I actually going to do with my life now that I have this like massive skill set and not really interested in pursuing capital A architecture. And when I say architecture, I mean building science, not software engineering and architecture. I might
Yeah.
as well mention that on this.
On a tech podcast, yeah.
Yeah. So right after graduation, I went into opening essentially my own creative agency. So with my husband, he's a software engineer. We did website design, branding. I know you and I spoke about this quite a bit at Startup Fest because it's what you're doing too.
Yeah.
Was really the goal of just making things look good and work really well for other businesses. So I had this I got to work with great companies and small shops and small businesses and artists create how they want to present themselves in the real world through architecture and branding and online. But I always wanted to do something for me, and I never really got to do that. And I was always looking for something that I could design and build like how I had been designing and building for my clients in my creative
Yeah.
firm. So, that was always kinda low key in the background, like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna wanna build something. How are you gonna make this happen? And then I became a parent 7 years ago, and my daughter has really thick, long hair, like, well, she was born with quite long hair for a baby, but she has long hair now, and it was, like, impossible to get her haircut, and everything sucked, like,
Yeah.
he didn't like going to the hairdresser. I love going to the hairdresser, so I thought it would be this neat experience that I bring my kid to the hairdresser. My hairstylist didn't wanna cut kids' hair.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, crap, like, where do I take her? Because she needs a haircut anyway."
Yeah.
So, I dabbled with, like, at-home haircuts, and she looked like a bit of, like, an indie rock star for a bit with, like, uneven bangs and, like, mismatched lengths, and I mean, she looks great, whatever she does, doesn't matter, but it didn't feel like how I wanted it. And growing up in Calgary, we had this salon called Beaner's Fun Cuts for Kids. And
Okay.
they did, and that's what I grew up with. So I was kind of like, where's the kids' hair salon in Atlantic Canada?
Yeah.
So that was kind of again in the back of my mind. Um, and about 2018, my husband and I went to Australia, where he's from in Melbourne, and they have kids' hair salons, and we brought our daughter into one of these salons. And I looked around and I was like, this is an amazing experience for her. There's chairs that are shaped like airplanes. Everybody's really nice. Things are child size. So, there's low level sink. So when she goes to the washroom, she can wash her hands and it's right sized for her. With that never
Yeah.
happened. So it was a really great experience. That really set it off for me, Raph, and that's when I was like, I can do this better." And it's no knock
Okay.
on where we went, but
Yeah.
using that skill set that I talked about, I can design and build and market and brand and create an experience that's really fun for kids, and I don't need to hire anybody to do it like I have it. Oh, caveat, I don't cut hair. I actually have to hire
That is
hairdressers.
one thing.
Yeah. So, besides the actual
And
cutting of hair, which I'm sure we'll get into,
yeah.
that's kind of how I got to where I am. That's what happened to me to wanna open a kids' hair salon.
Nice. I love it. I'm kinda curious. Okay, so you decide you wanna do this thing that you've seen in a couple other places, and you think you can bring your skill set to improve the experience, the business. What specifically do you think, like, your background, like, what is in your background that's going to make this, special, different? Like, what's the unique thing about Bubbles?
Well, fused with my skill set, it really is that kind of merge of design, both physical design, so architecture and spatial building,
Okay.
mixed with the branding, and then mixed kind of with my husband's skill set of creating technological solutions that
Yeah.
work better. So an example of that is, oh my God, like I don't know if you have it out in Vancouver. You're in Vancouver, you're in
I
BC.
am in Vancouver.
Yeah. Like if you go to a barber shop, sometimes you can't even pay with your card, like it's cash only. So like things like, hey, guess what? We are going to be able to offer you payment with your card. You can tap or you can prepay. So when you're
Online
funneling with your
booking?
kid, you can online book. So it's just those
What?
type of things. Yeah, I know. How is it 2024 and like
Yeah.
90% of hair salons aren't using easily accessible technology to help their processes. So mix kind of the design aspect in the marketing from my past with like the ability to apply technology. And I think it's really an easy thing for us to do that's not easy for everybody else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, okay, so that's what you bring to the table and from your background. And then brick and mortar, like I feel like that's very different. You didn't say anything previously about ever doing anything brick and mortar.
Yeah.
So
And like
what's
you're
what's that side of
right.
things?
It's stressful, and I think, as we talked about in, Montreal at Startup Fest, I've been looking at this physical location to
Yeah.
open the shop for, like, months now, and, like,
Yeah.
somehow the landlord has, like, graciously let me delay and delay and delay signing the lease. It is scary, and I don't have a lot of
Mhm.
experience in that. But again, I do have experience. We've done a little bit of residential development, for example.
Yeah.
So I have I have that experience where it's not again, it's not brick and mortar shop, but it is physically building.
Yeah.
I know it's still not the same, but, another great thing, and I'll give a plug to Propel, which is an accelerator that I'm currently with. They pair you up with a mentor, and my mentor had exited after building a successful chain of restaurants in Atlantic
Mhm.
Canada, and his wife is a hairstylist. So, having him as part of my team, although not formally, he doesn't have any stake in the business, but having him to talk to every week and talk about things. Is this lease look okay to you? Or is it going to like screw me over? Those types of questions from
Yeah.
somebody who has gone through the brick and mortar experience where he had not done that in the past
Yeah.
has been really helpful and has like bolstered my confidence to be able to do it.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm curious what's been like the most I don't know, the most different sort of thing, like the thing that you've learned that you're like, "Oh, that is not what I was expecting."
Um, the hair industry in general, like
Okay.
let me give you one example. And
Yeah.
I was looking for employees and I was like, oh, great, I'll put an ad out. You can't advertise for a barber and a hairdresser at the same time. You have to be one or the other. These are like two
Oh,
warring factions. Like you can't be a salon and a barber shop at the same time. So there's no way I could hire. There's and this is kind of like topical in St. John because there's so many barber schools here, but there's very
okay.
few hairstylist schools. So I was like,
Huh.
great, I'll open this hair salon and I'll hire barbers. No, like you can't get insurance if you do that. You are not going to be able to like please either association. You will not be able to get a certificate of business like from either of them if you try to mix the two. So early on, I learned that they're very different, but they're not different, but they're different in that you can't have both at the same time. So that's been really interesting. Learning about what motivates hairstylists as employees has really been
Okay.
a big thing for me. What I've landed on in terms of the HR package and compensation is really like, hey, I'll pay you more and you don't have to deal with the day-to-day drama that you might be dealing with at a high-end hair salon where there's multiple egos and personalities, and, no offense to any of them because they have helped me get to where I've been, but, it was just something that I wasn't aware of before I started this journey.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just thinking about like the people involved in your business or what you're creating here, I feel like the way you talk about like what it is and giving parents a space to take a break and kids having a fun experience, and it sounds very community minded.
Yeah,
And it's kind of curious if you can talk a little bit about that, like what community mean for you,
yeah.
and maybe also dig into like your vision and mission and your impact and yeah, how you frame all of those things.
Sure. I'm glad that you brought that up, Raf. Like community is such a big importance to what I'm doing at Bubbles. As a mom who went through postpartum depression, not having an outlet to just get out of the house with my baby at the time and talk to other moms was a challenge. I managed to get through it and I did find my community, but
Yeah.
I want Bubbles to be that space for new parents who do need an outlet. If you need a hot coffee, come over. Like, I'll hold your baby for you. Will you sit and have a little cry? Like, no problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to just be about hair. It really is about creating that environment for people to go through what they're going through because they don't really exist, honestly, at least where we are here in Atlantic Canada. And that kind of runs into employees as well. As like a female entrepreneur and business owner, I want to make businesses that work for women. So,
Yeah.
for example, the first stylist that I've hired, she's got a couple of kids, and there's a gap between 3 and 5 where her kids are maybe they're going to go to daycare. We're not sure yet. We're still working that out. But for me,
Yeah.
it's important for that works for us. So there's a space in the salon where we're gonna be able to bring our children.
I love it.
Yeah, so it's like, I want this to be able to work for us. I don't want her to feel that, okay, it's either my career or being a stay-at-home mom. I'm really trying to bridge the gap and bring it together. This is not popular, but I've heard of this before. I mean, I've worked at architecture firms that have had childcare in the building. So
Hmm.
these things exist, but they don't really exist in the area where I'm living now. So, again, just creating a business that really puts women and families at the forefront is really important to me. And I was talking to someone the other day. I'm not going to do it if it doesn't work for women.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not going to. So those things are really important to me. And then the other aspect of the impact from the kids' perspective is, again, giving them a space where they can be themselves
Yeah.
and, letting them use things that are designed for them. Nothing is designed for children. There's playgrounds and stuff like that, but those are public spaces. There's not that many businesses that are like, "Hey, what do you wanna do? What's gonna be fun for you? Let's do it." So, and then because they have a space for themselves and, stylists who are listening to what they want to do and how they wanna project who they are through what their hair looks like, is really important, and it builds confidence and self-esteem, and that's the other half of it that's super important to me is I don't care what it looks like, but as long as those kids leave the door feeling like they look 100% to them, awesome.
Nice. I love
Yeah,
it.
so that's really important to me too.
Cool.
Yeah,
Um, I'm I want to go down a little path here that I don't know how we'll make how we'll make
go
it
down
work,
the
but
path.
I'm kind of curious because this is a tech podcast after all.
Mhm.
Like, if you can talk a little bit more about like how tech fits into your business, whether it's operationally, whether it's on like the customer side, whether it's any of those things, and I guess also more how like your background like helps you integrate those things and how you think about tech in the context of building a business like this.
Yeah, it's obviously a good thing to talk about for your podcast and for me. And I had a bit of time to think about this and like,
Hmm.
what's my tech stack? Like I use it. I use so many different pieces of technology every day and I haven't even opened the doors yet. So like I mentioned, we use Square for POS, scheduling our appointments and scheduling our employees.
Hmm.
That's amazing. I've been really impressed with them actually because I thought with my marketing experience I would need to use HubSpot, and we do use that. But Square really has most of the CRM capabilities that I need, which is again awesome because it's a lower cost to just use one rather than two. Other things like for design wise, I use the Adobe Creative Suite to create a lot of my designs and then bring them into Canva to create the assets with them so I can share with people. So the ability to share things on Canva is great. And I used to be a Canva hater, but now I actually
Yeah.
love it. Like, don't tell anybody. Like, mm,
I had the same transition.
it's like embarrassing to say almost. And the other thing that I use all the time is ChatGPT and like Canva's like native AI piece as well to help me write my content. Like
Yeah.
it's good, and, like, I know people are talking about it, but I was always kind of like, "Okay, I use it, but I don't talk about it," but I thought it'd be good to mention on the podcast. Like, I
Yeah.
I use ChatGPT, I read it and have to edit it, but especially the Canva's AI, like, I feel like it's got my brand voice now, like, we've really trained it,
Nice.
to be able to use the type of tone that we want. So that's been really amazing. And it saves so much time. So, yes, definitely an AI adopter over here. And you would never think this. I remember at Startup Fest, somebody we're in a loud networking setting. I think you were nearby because I told you about this. And this lady couldn't quite hear what I said. And she goes, "Are you using AI to cut kids' hair?" No, but yeah, like, no, there's not like a Edward Scissorhands robot powered by like an LLM or whatever, but I use it in my marketing strategy and it's a huge tool for me. So that's how I use it. And then on top of that, like I mentioned, we're building our physical space. So I use AutoCAD, and for 3D modeling, I use SketchUp. There's so much tech in my everyday, and it helps me be able to communicate with my customers and helps them be able to book and pay for their appointments and for me to help schedule my employees. So it really is a tech enabled startup. And people would never know that if you don't talk about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do you like what's your process when you like how do you evaluate a technology? How do you decide like, okay, this is going to be the thing I'm going to use and why? Is it I don't know. I have a tendency to just try everything and just be
And
like, "Oh, cool. It's just yeah."
yeah, I've tried everything. Like I've used a few different design softwares to kind of get where I want, or like what website's another one. Like, do I want to use a Squarespace site and pay for it for the rest of my life? Or can I actually make WordPress work for me without putting too much, you know, time and energy into making something that will inevitably break because a plugin won't work in a minute. So like I
Oh,
try everything
WordPress.
too, and again, as a creative agency like you guys, like you, it really depends on the application. But I've tried a lot of different things, and I've really settled on what works. Again, the good example is like the HubSpot. I thought I would just give all my money to HubSpot, and that would be great, and I could do all my intake forms and everything right there.
Mhm.
But then when I found out that Square does it too at a much lower price, and I could just not even use HubSpot. That was awesome. So it's trial and error, like you said.
Yeah.
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 And
Cool.
remembering to cancel the subscriptions when you decide to not use it anymore. Just the amount of things that I'm just paying for in the background
So
is
many subscriptions.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard recently about like these, I mean, they're more enterprisey, but like the subscriptions to manage subscriptions, like tools to help you manage your SaaS products. I'm just like, I feel like soon we'll just have SaaS products to help manage the SaaS products that help manage the SaaS products. Like it's
Oh
just
my
gonna be
god, it's so crazy. It's a little meta thinking about that. It's a bit too much. To be honest.
yeah, yeah. I'm curious if you can like tell me like so I feel like you've just been an entrepreneur for forever it seems like. Like how did you decide to step into entrepreneurship? Did you just kind of trip and fall into it? And like maybe you can talk about entrepreneurship specifically in New Brunswick. Like I've talked to Fred Laforge a couple episodes ago who spoke a little bit to that. But yeah, like what's your story like in that
Yeah,
context?
it's a tough, like, it's a weird one because I think
Mhm,
the trip and fall analogy that you mentioned is very true. I didn't mean to do this. Like, as someone who's studied so many different things and didn't
mhm,
feel like I fit into any of those traditional career paths, I felt lonely and like I didn't fit into anything. It sounds so stupid saying it out loud, but like I knew I didn't want to be an architect, but I wanted to learn design at the highest level. So when all
yeah,
my friends are going to get jobs at these amazing world-renowned firms, I didn't want to do that. I thought I could have more fun, make more money, design better, and design more autonomously by doing it on my own. So I kind of lost that community of being
mm,
an architect, and they do the things that architects do,
yeah,
or the same for business. Like I didn't everybody from my graduating class of business school went and got a job at like Pepsi or L'Oreal or marketing department. But I thought that was kind of like selling your soul to the devil. Like no offense to all those friends, but I felt like I didn't have a place to fit. And through creating my own agency and now with Bubbles, I feel like you can control the narrative. And it
mhm,
wasn't an intentional decision to say, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a capital E entrepreneur," but
yeah,
it's just something that you've tripped and fell into. And then New Brunswick is an interesting one too. I'm glad that you mentioned Fred. I met him and I listened to his podcast that you guys did, and I have to echo, like, there's New Brunswick is a fun place because if you wanna do something, I firmly believe you can do it. This is a bit random, but I moved from Guatemala to St. John, like,
Hmm.
and we used to say, "Todo es posible en San Juan del Norte," like, anything is possible in St. John of the North, because I felt like when I moved here, my community immediately opened. Everybody wanted to know what I was doing, who I was, how they could support me as I started my entrepreneurship journey. Like, it was really supportive. So that I found there was like an immediate community. They might have not been like a business community per se, but it was a creative community, a community of people who wanted to support somebody who was new to their city. So St. John, like I'm not from here originally, but there's always going to be a big place in my heart. I was able to connect with an accelerator run at Connection Works here. And again, they were pretty good at connecting me with the different supports that are available for entrepreneurs. There's not tons. And again, if there's any grants out there for female entrepreneurs, if anyone wants to give me money to start my business, I will happily take it. But at least I know now the avenues to go to get, loans and lines of credits to be able to get to where you want. So it's supportive, and I feel like I can pick up the phone, call anyone I need to get what I need done. But I just wish there was a little bit more support for the innovation sector here in New Brunswick, honestly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we are coming up to the end here, and we are on a tech podcast, and we like to shout out products that might need a little shout out, things that you find helpful, things that you find, products that are cool and helpful in your life. So do you have a product to shout out, Alex?
Yes. I was toying up which one to pitch on your show. One is interesting. It didn't work as well for me, and the other I use every day. So I'm going to go with the one that I use every day. It's
Cool.
a hardware piece following in Fred LaForge's footsteps here. But I got, when I was an early young parent, this light called the Casper Glow Light. Casper is a mattress company in Canada. I
Y-
think maybe it's not Canadian, but the mattress company. But
Yeah.
they have this little light and it integrates with your phone and it gets lighter. It kind of is like a rise to wake light in the morning as
Okay.
opposed to an alarm clock. And you can turn it on just slightly if you have to get up in the middle of the night with your child, as opposed to turning on a light. And the design is so comforting and warm, and it looks really nice, but just the way that you can program it through your iPhone is awesome, and there's tons of stuff out there, but this one, like, I legitimately touch several times a day, and I buy it for my friends who are new parents. So I think I bought 4 this summer. So
Nice.
I don't know if Casper needs a plug, but if you are a good parent and you need something to help you with your parenting journey,
There
this
we
could be a
go.
good piece of technology.
Sweet. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Alex. It was really fun chatting with you and learning about Bubbles and how you got there and how you're building it. And yeah, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Ralph. It's been so exciting being on your podcast.
Cool. Well, see ya.
Bye.
Folks, that was my chat with Alex Weaver Crawford. Learned so much from her. It's really inspiring to see these kinds of community-driven projects. I love the way she fits in her story, her innovations, and her purpose into building this business, as well as, talk sometimes about how tech fits into different kinds of businesses, fits into sustainability, into kinds of things in our lives. I just find it really cool to see people who have that sort of tech background bring it into other aspects of their lives and their businesses and their purpose. And if you enjoyed this podcast, are not yet subscribed, head over to sustainabletechpodcast.com. You can find all of the links to subscribe in any guest app, YouTube, wherever. The podcast is everywhere. If you are listening on YouTube or watching, a like and subscribe would really help us out. We're a small team, and every time someone clicks that button, it's awesome. It's really helpful. We'd love feedback. We're always trying to learn. We're trying to improve this thing. You'll see that the podcast has changed so much since we started. So we're always trying to improve. I'd love to hear more. If you are building something awesome that is trying to help build a more sustainable world economically, socially, environmentally, we'd love to chat with you, especially if there's an intersection with tech. So shoot us a message and we can schedule an interview. It'll be super fun. Just let me know. Shoot us a message at hello@sustainabletechpodcast.com and we'll make something work. Also find other ways to contact us. Just head over to the website and you'll find what you need. That is also where you'll find the newsletter, where we will be sending out some updates. So if you're interested in building a better world, a more sustainable world with technology, sign up for that too. Meantime, we all want to do something good in the world, so go out there and build something good, folks. I will see you in the next one. See ya.